She told herself it was an accident, that her hand slipped, that the moment got away from her. But when $3,000 worth of Chateau Margaux left Vanessa Castellano's fingers and painted itself across Marcus Hale's chest, everyone in that restaurant understood what words could not say. This wasn't clumsiness. This was contempt made visible. And in the 10 minutes that followed, $1.5 billion partnership would dissolve faster than the wine soaking into expensive fabric. This is our Black Diary, and what you're about to hear is the story of a single dinner that ended a marriage, shattered a reputation, and proved that some prices are too high to pay, no matter how much money is on the table. But to understand why that glass left her hand, we need to go back to two lives that should never have intersected. Two worlds built on entirely different foundations. Marcus Hale grew up in Southeast D.C., where survival wasn't a metaphor, it was a daily negotiation. His mother worked 3 jobs while his father became a memory before Marcus learned to spell his own name. The neighborhood had a rhythm, sirens at night, hustlers on corners, and a quiet desperation that seeped into everything like humidity in August. Most kids there had 2 paths, quick money or no money. Marcus found a third. His mother would say the same thing every night before he went to sleep. She'd sit on the edge of his bed, exhausted from shifts that blurred together, and she'd tell him, "They can take a lot from you, baby, but they can't take your mind, and they can't take your name." So Marcus protected both with everything he had. While his friends chased short-term gains, Marcus chased patents. While they learned to navigate street corners, he learned to navigate code. By 25, he had his first patent. By 30, his first acquisition. By 38, he was CEO of Hale Dynamics, a Black-owned cybersecurity firm that Fortune 500 companies couldn't ignore, no matter how much some of them wanted to. He'd made it. But here's what people don't tell you about making it as a Black man in America. You're never just successful. You're always suspiciously successful. There's always an unspoken question hovering in rooms you enter, an assumption that your presence needs explanation. Marcus had learned to live with that question. He'd learned to ignore the hesitations, the slight pauses, the way people's faces shifted when his name didn't match their expectations. He'd been ignoring it his entire life. Vanessa Castellano, on the other hand, never had to ignore anything. She was born into the kind of wealth that doesn't announce itself because it doesn't have to. Old money. The kind that built libraries and had senators on speed dial. Her family name opened doors before she even approached them. She married Richard Castellano, heir to a global empire in manufacturing and logistics. Together, they were the couple you see in glossy magazines, charity galas where they raised millions while sipping champagne, wine auctions in Monaco, summers that stretched across 3 continents. Vanessa had taste. She had elegance. She had everything except one critical quality, the ability to see people as people. To her, humanity came in 2 categories, people like her and everyone else, and Marcus Hale was very much everyone else. Their worlds should have stayed separate, parallel lines that never touch. But business has a way of forcing collisions. Castellano Industries needed to expand into tech infrastructure, government contracts, cybersecurity systems, markets they couldn't penetrate with manufacturing alone. They needed a partner with cutting-edge technology and the kind of credibility that opened doors in spaces where the Castellano name held no weight. Marcus's firm was perfect. After months of negotiations, proposals, legal reviews, and careful deliberation, they reached an agreement. $1.5 billion over 5 years, the largest contract Hale Dynamics had ever secured. For Castellano Industries, it was the key to an entirely new revenue stream. All that remained was the signing dinner, a formality, a celebration, a chance to toast to partnership and shake hands over expensive wine. At least, that's what Marcus thought it would be. If you've ever believed in second chances, in the possibility that dignity should never have a price tag, consider subscribing. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. But it helps us continue telling stories like this one, stories that need to be heard every single day. Because what you're about to hear, it's the kind of moment that changes everything. The restaurant was called Le Bernardin Privé, not the famous location in Manhattan, but its unnamed twin, the one accessible only to people whose last names functioned as passwords. Marcus arrived early, alone. No entourage, no assistant, just him in a navy Tom Ford suit with gold cufflinks his mother gave him the day he launched his company. When he gave his name to the maitre d', there was a pause, brief, nearly imperceptible. But Marcus caught it. He always did. You develop a sixth sense when you're black and successful. You learn to read the microexpressions, the fractional hesitations, the split-second recalibrations people make when your presence contradicts their assumptions. Marcus said nothing. He'd been saying nothing about moments like this for 38 years. Richard Castellano arrived 15 minutes later, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of tan that comes from owning property on multiple coastlines. Beside him walked Vanessa, diamonds at her throat. A silk dress worth more than most cars. Hair pulled back with the kind of tension that suggested control was important to her. She smiled when she saw Marcus, but it wasn't warmth. It was the smile you give service workers. Polite, transactional, dismissive. Richard extended his hand with practiced enthusiasm. "Good to finally meet face to face," he said. "I've heard incredible things." They shook hands firmly, professionally. Then Vanessa offered hers, limp and brief, like she was handing him something unpleasant she wanted to be rid of quickly. "Charming to meet you," she said. Her tone suggested otherwise. They sat. Appetizers arrived. Wine was poured. Richard dominated the conversation with the vocabulary of venture capital. Expansion, synergy, market disruption. All the words wealthy men use when they want to sound visionary without saying anything concrete. Marcus listened, nodded, contributed when appropriate. He was skilled at this. Polished, articulate. But the entire time Vanessa stared at him. Not at him exactly, through him, like he was an imperfection on the tablecloth she was mentally trying to remove. If you've ever sat at a table where you knew deep in your gut that you weren't welcome, leave a comment. Tell me about it, because Marcus felt it. He'd felt it 1,000 times before. But this time, something was different. This time, he wasn't going to let it pass unremarked. It started with small comments, subtle provocations. Vanessa sipped her wine and remarked on the branding of Hale Dynamics. "Interesting," she said. "Very urban." The word hung in the air like cigarette smoke. Richard shifted uncomfortably, tried to redirect, but Vanessa continued. "I just mean it's bold," she said, her smile thin and sharp. "Not what we usually work with. But Richard assures me you're capable." Marcus didn't flinch. "We are," he said evenly. "That's why you're here." She laughed. It was a cold sound. Then came dessert. The waiter, a young black man, maybe 22, brought out an elaborately plated dish. Vanessa looked at it and wrinkled her nose. "This isn't what I ordered," she said. The waiter apologized, explained it was the chef's special. Vanessa cut him off. "I don't care what it is. I know what I ordered. Do you people not listen? You people." Marcus's jaw tightened. Richard cleared his throat, tried to smooth things over, but Vanessa was already instructing the waiter to take it back, to get it right this time. The young man nodded quickly and disappeared. Vanessa adjusted her napkin like she'd just swatted an insect. Marcus set down his fork. "That wasn't necessary," he said quietly. Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me, what you just did? He made a mistake. You didn't have to humiliate him." Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't humiliate anyone. I simply expected basic competence." "You expected respect," Marcus corrected. "And you gave none." The table went silent. Richard looked like he wanted to dissolve into his chair. Vanessa's face flushed, not with shame, but with fury. "I don't know who you think you are," she said, her voice low and venomous, "but you don't get to lecture me on respect." Marcus leaned back in his chair. Calm. Steady. "You're right," he said. "I don't, which is why I'm leaving." He stood, and that's when Vanessa's hand shot out. Fast, reflexive, angry. She grabbed her wine glass and threw it. Not at the floor. At him. Deep red Bordeaux splashed across Marcus's chest, soaking through his white shirt, staining the navy jacket, dripping onto his shoes. The entire restaurant went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned. Vanessa's chest heaved. Her hand remained in the air, trembling. "Oops," she said. Not an apology. A taunt. Richard shot to his feet, his voice cracking with panic. "Vanessa, what the hell?" But Marcus didn't move. He stood there, wine dripping, shirt ruined, and he looked at her. Really looked at her. Not with anger, with pity. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, still dry somehow, and pulled out his phone. He typed something. One message, brief. He looked at Richard. "The deal's off." Richard went pale. "Marcus, wait." The deal is off. Marcus turned and walked out, leaving $1.5 billion contract and Vanessa's dignity in ruins behind him. Richard didn't sleep that night. He called Marcus 17 times. Every call went to voicemail. He sent emails, text messages. He reached out through mutual contacts, through lawyers, through anyone who might have influence. Nothing, because Marcus Hale had made up his mind. And when a man like Marcus makes a decision rooted in principle, there is no amount of money that moves him. By morning, the news had spread through the circles that mattered. Castellano Industries had lost the Hale Dynamics deal. And worse, no one understood why. Vanessa, meanwhile, was in complete denial. "He's bluffing," she told Richard over breakfast. "He'll come back. They always do." Richard stared at her like she was a stranger. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I spilled wine, Richard. It was an accident." "It wasn't an accident, Vanessa. And you know it." She waved him off. "He's being dramatic, sensitive, probably looking for leverage." "Leverage?" Richard's voice cracked. "He doesn't need leverage. We need him, then make him come back." "I can't." And in that moment, Vanessa Castellano experienced something she'd never felt before. The understanding that she had done something money couldn't fix. You know, there's a moment in every story like this where the person who caused the harm realizes they're not in control anymore. If you've been there, on either side of that realization, leave a comment, tell your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because we're just getting started. What happens next is something you won't want to miss. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't make public statements or post cryptic messages on social media. He simply moved forward. Within 48 hours, 3 other companies reached out, firms that had been watching Hale Dynamics for years, waiting for an opportunity. He chose one, a partnership worth $1.8 billion, more than Castellano had offered. When his team asked why he walked away from the original deal, he said something they never forgot. "I've spent my whole life being told I should be grateful just to be in the room. But I built the room, and I decide who gets to stay." It took 3 weeks for the story to leak. Not through traditional media, through social media. A restaurant staff member who'd witnessed everything posted a thread on Twitter. "I watched a rich white woman throw wine on a black CEO because he called out her racism. Then he canceled a $1 billion deal. And honestly, I've never seen anything more powerful." It went viral within hours. The hashtag Vanessa Castellano began trending. People investigated. They found old photos, past interviews, patterns of behavior. Vanessa's charity work, once celebrated, was reframed as performative. Her social circles were exposed as exclusive and elitist. Her carefully curated image, built over decades, shattered in a single weekend. Richard tried damage control. He issued statements, apologized on his wife's behalf, promised accountability. But the board of Castellano Industries wasn't interested in promises. They were interested in results, and Vanessa had cost them $1.5 billion. They gave Richard an ultimatum: distance yourself from her publicly or step down. He chose the company, filed for separation 3 months later, not because he stopped loving her, but because he finally saw her. Really saw her. And once you see someone clearly, you can't unsee them. Vanessa lost more than her marriage. She lost her social standing. Invitations stopped arriving. Fundraisers uninvited her. Friends, or people she thought were friends, stopped returning calls. She tried to apologize, publicly, privately. But apologies don't work when people don't believe you've changed. And Vanessa hadn't changed. She was sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she did. People can tell the difference. 1 year after that dinner, Marcus gave a keynote speech at a tech conference. He didn't mention Vanessa by name, but he told the story. And he said something that resonated with everyone in that room. Dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're born with. But respect? Respect is something you give. And the moment you withhold it from someone because of how they look, where they're from, or what they've survived, you lose the right to expect it back. The room stood. The applause lasted 2 full minutes, because he wasn't just talking about business. He was talking about humanity. Remember that waiter, the young man Vanessa humiliated? Marcus tracked him down, offered him a job, not out of pity, out of principle. That young man, Jamal, now works in Hale Dynamics' HR department, helping design equity programs for underrepresented talent. Because Marcus understood something Vanessa never could. Kindness isn't weakness, it's currency, and it pays dividends you can't measure in dollars. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a position where you had to choose between money and dignity? Between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? Drop a comment. I want to hear your story, because these aren't just stories, they're mirrors. And sometimes we need to see ourselves reflected back. If this one's resonating with you, hit that like button, share it. Let someone else see it too, because some lessons are meant to be passed on. People always ask, what happened to Vanessa? The truth is, she's still wealthy, still lives in a penthouse, still wears designer clothes, but she's alone, not physically, but in every way that matters. Because wealth without respect is just isolation with better furniture. Vanessa learned, too late, that you can't buy back a reputation. You can't apologize your way out of who you've been. You can only prove through time and consistent action that you've become someone different. And she never did. This story isn't just about Vanessa and Marcus. It's about every boardroom where someone is dismissed because of their skin. Every restaurant where someone is treated as less than because of their accent. Every moment where proximity to power makes people forget basic humanity. It's about the 1,000 small humiliations Black people endure in spaces where they've earned the right to be. And it's about the choice we all have, to see people or to see categories. Marcus chose to see people, even when they refused to see him. And that's why he won. Not because he canceled a contract, but because he refused to shrink. Today, Marcus Hale's company is valued at over $4 billion. He's been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, Bloomberg. He's a sought-after speaker, a mentor, a symbol. But if you ask him what he's most proud of, it's not the wealth. It's the people who tell him, I saw what you did, and it gave me permission to walk away too. Because representation isn't just about being in the room. It's about showing others they don't have to stay in rooms that don't respect them. There's a quote Marcus keeps on his desk. It's from his mother. They can take a lot from you, baby, but they can't take your mind, and they can't take your name. He's added one line to it, and if you protect both, you'll never lose yourself. That's the lesson. Not revenge, not bitterness. Self-preservation as an act of resistance. Before we close this chapter, if this story moved you, subscribe right now. It's free, it's quick. But more than that, it keeps these stories alive. Because for every Marcus, there are 100 others whose stories never get told. And maybe, just maybe, one of them is yours. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what this brought up for you, because that's what we do here. We witness, we remember, we reflect. Together, this is our Black Diary, a place where our stories, the painful ones, the powerful ones, the ones that don't always make headlines, get told. Not for applause, not for virality, but for memory. Because when we forget our stories, we forget ourselves, and we can't afford to forget. Not now, not ever. Until the next entry, hold on to your dignity. It's the one thing no one can take.